People tend to classify me first and foremost as a painter, and I am. You know, I love painting, but the foundation of my painting actually lives within my relationship to our greater visual culture. And a lot of that, for me, the entry point was through beadwork. I draw really strongly from the histories of abstract Lakota artistic practices and easel painting abstraction. Abstraction is paring down extremely complex thoughts and ideas into the most poignant artistic gestures possible. It's really wild to look at this because it's just, you know, such bold geometry across a rectangle, but then it ends up being extremely detailed, even though from the, you know, basis of the geometry of that sketch, it looks deceivingly simple. The composition of Wopela 1, 2, and 3, they're all these mirrored hourglass forms, which in Lakota are called kapemini. At its core, those symbols speak to ideas of balance, of our relationship between earth and sky, our relationship between here and the spiritual realm. Some of the symbolism that is in any of my works, I've figured out ways that I'm comfortable speaking to it that is pared down to core concepts. Things that help us remember how we want to walk through the world, how we want to be with one another. But I have a justified fear of giving it all away because of the history of how people in this country have treated our communities. And so there's certain elements that just aren't for sale. Being somebody who's mixed, my lived situations have been an amalgamation of influences. My time and experience, snowboarding and skateboarding and growing up in like hip hop culture and rave culture, that's an informative part of my lived experience as well, as is my experience as a Lakota person. I went to tribal colleges and I have an MFA. There's all of these different parts of me that inform why I'm making what I'm making.
Maybe let's start at the end there, since these are some of our oldest items. These moccasins are from the early 19th century, quill work still intact. And something really special about them is they have a parfleche on their sole.
Quill work on these ones is really beautiful. Dara, are you okay if I take this out?
Would just be gentle.
Yep.
Tell me about these little beads where it's interrupting the pattern.
A lot of times people will call that the spirit bead. The teaching is generally that life isn't perfect, so people will often let that happen or put them in on purpose. If you look at the rest of this, I mean, it's absolutely perfect. There's no way that they were like, oops, oh, totally missed that random blue bead.
So we have this one and then a couple others.
Oh, beautiful. I love the green yarn. In Lakota artistic practices, people have been practicing abstraction in the form of paint on rawhide, in the form of beadwork, in the form of porcupine quill work, and other applications for millennia. We don't know exactly how each object was collected, but we do know that it's a really sordid history. And we do know that people were not collecting the maker's name, and oftentimes even the tribe. So we're faced with this chasm of not knowing. Native art has historically been othered. It is craft or design or self-taught or ethnographic or anthropological, anything outside of this is just art. And up until very recently, within the systems of academia, we have been taught European and European American art history. We've made progress, but that progress is in its infancy. Ooh. Hi, how you doing? Is this your work? Yeah. Wow, beautiful.
Thank you.
Really good work.
Thank you.
That's gorgeous. I haven't exhibited here since 2013, but Santa Fe Indian Art Market is still home in so many ways. As Native people, we've had to build our own field, and this is a representation of that. Kids, oh my word. I approach my work as this concentric circles of people that I'm trying to reach. And first and foremost, I'm usually trying to speak to Lakota people and Native people because we haven't had the privilege to see our communities represented in the fine arts world in the way that so many other people have. And I want the work to be seen and enjoyed by all people that encounter it, period. It's not two worlds. We may have multiple cultural influences, but we all are sharing one common world, and hopefully we're making efforts to learn how to collectively do that better. There we go. Okay, a dark blue and its partner, the light blue, a dark red and its partner, the light red, and a dark gold and its partner, the light gold.
Okay.
It took a lot of planning in advance before we even got to actually stitching beads. The beginning of the process is, figuring out the composition, and then once I figured out the composition, then it comes down to figuring out the math. And here we go. Whitney, 9mm bugles planning at 8 feet by 14 feet, which is 96 inches by 168 inches. 15,000 9mm bugles per kilogram. I need approximately 677,376 beads total. Each strip is beaded. Once the beadwork is complete, I paint the panel systems and then piece the entire panel system together. And then we create a kind of mock bridge that I crawl around on to lay out all the geometry so that I know exactly where each strip is supposed to be placed. A lot of what I've been thinking about lately is how do you protect the sanctity of your studio practice and the time needed and necessary to be able to sit back and reflect on your practice. What we desire as artists, what we want to do, what brings us back to the studio day after day after day doesn't always match what the market desires from us. And as an Indigenous person, you have an extra layer of commitment to community as well. Even if you're working full-time as an artist, the epic battle is how to actually have time in your studio to make the art. I had known for quite some time that I would eventually need help, but I was really resistant because up until that point, it was entirely all my hands. Once I realized that, we have systems within our communities that already support in artistic production, I thought to myself, well, I could model support within my studio more closely aligned to how we do this within my community as opposed to like how the art world has historically done this. My daughter works here, my mother-in-law works here, my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my niece, their cousin, They are all family, community, and friends. So these guys, I basically asked them to kind of like bead by number, like you would paint by number. You know, you put the 5s where the 5s go, you put the 4s where the 4s go, and that's what they've done with me for 2 years. This piece, I wanted to do something akin to a crazy quilt, just kind of like open it up for them to be able to go into the bead stash, pick the colors they want to work with, and make strips within a certain measurement so that I can then later take the information and create this sculptural piece. This is my daughter's work. This is my daughter's work. I think this is hers too. There's a whole lot of Nina going on right here. This is her work. This is my mother-in-law, Helen's work. This is my mother-in-law's work. This is too. These last few years have felt like an outpouring of support in a way that I feel really humbled by, really, really deeply grateful for. I feel like anytime one of us gets an opportunity, it's a blessing for the field, it's a blessing for our communities, both intimate communities and larger communities. I really hope that my work helps shift this perspective on how we understand the history of American art. Our artistic practices are reflections of our existences. Our artistic practices are reflections of our society. And if we're only speaking to that history from a singular perspective, we are leaving out so much of the story. And if we talk about the ways that we have influenced one another, that we have supported one another, that we have learned from one another, the ways that we have harmed one another, then we can learn how to do better next time.